We're continuing our look at OHL team histories, and today we land on the Flint Firebirds. They relocated to Flint in 2015, and this team, they've made their presence known in short order. They're nearly at their 10-year anniversary mark, but it was how the team moved and then their start, which really gained them some attention. So before they arrived in Flint, they kind of bounced around a bit. From 1997 until 2015, they were the Plymouth Whalers. Before that, they the Detroit Whalers. That was from 1995 to 1997. They were also the Detroit Junior Red Wings from 1992 until 1995. And then from 1990 until 1992, they started off as the Detroit CompuWare Ambassadors. And that CompuWare name comes up again. If you've been following this OHL team history series, the CompuWare name is familiar because we talked about this in the Windsor Spitfires video. Because before they moved to Flint, they were owned by Peter Kormanos. He sold his ownership of the Windsor Spitfires. At that time, he had the team known as the Windsor CompuWare Spitfires because he owned the company CompuWare. And then he was able to have an expansion team in the city of Detroit. It was also the first American team in the Ontario Hockey League. So there's a bit of trivia knowledge for you when you're having conversations with friends about junior hockey. So the team, like I said, bounced around quite a bit while in the Detroit area. And they also shared Joe Louis Arena for a time with the Detroit Red Wings in the National Hockey League. And then they ended up in the Palace of Auburn Hills, where the Detroit Pistons played. And they also played at the tiny Oak Park Arena. And that's all because of a feud between Karmanos and Mike Ilitch, the owner of the Detroit Red Wings at the time. So Ilitch decided to kick the junior hockey team out because of the feud that they had. And then they would change names to the Whalers because Karmanos, he purchased the Hartford Whalers and then, of course, moved them to Carolina to become the Hurricanes and decided, well, let's keep the Whalers name. And he gave it to his junior hockey team. If you've never seen images of the Plymouth Whalers jerseys, they were a classic. It's a jersey I would love to add to my collection, but they're kind of hard to find and a little pricey depending on what websites you're looking at. But still, this is an organization that bounced around before ending up in Flint. And even when Karmanos decided to eventually sell the Plymouth Whalers, there was talk that the team could have ended up in either Chatham or Brantford before landing in Flint, where it was purchased by Rolf Nilsson. And it was an interesting time because there was a lot of speculation about Chatham, but the problem there was the arena situation. And that's been an ongoing discussion with Chatham-Kent City Council. They've talked about building a new arena, but nothing to the size of the OHL mandates. So Chatham, a lot of people would like to see as an expansion team, but until they get an arena, they're not going to be getting a team. And they nearly got the Plymouth Whalers. That was back in 2015. But there were issues after the team ended up in Flint. So what happened was Rolf Nilsson ended up firing the coaching staff. And it was over allegations that the coaching staff didn't give his son enough ice time. Although John Gruden has since denied those allegations, saying that wasn't the reason for his dismissal. But the players apparently stormed into the Firebirds office when the coaching staff was fired a second time. So they threw their jerseys on the ground and stepping up for their coaches. And the coaches, actually, that was the first time they ended up storming the office. And they were not happy with John Gruden and the coaching staff being let go that first time. But then they were rehired and given a 3-year contract extensions. But then Gruden was then fired a second time. That's when the Ontario Hockey League stepped in and they suspended Nilsson for 5 seasons. They also fined the team $250,000 and they took away their first-round pick for 2016 and then threatened to sell the team if Nilsson tried to get involved with the organization during that 5-year suspension. So things were a little on edge as the Ontario Hockey League managed the team over those 5 seasons. But Nilsson, he has since returned and he's still the owner. And since then, we haven't heard of any situations where the league has had to step in. It seems things are now on the up and up, but we'll have to wait and see. And if you're a Flint Firebirds fan, it must have been quite the roller coaster ride those first few years when the Firebirds were back in the Ontario Hockey League. Let's look at the top 10 scorers. I'm only looking at the Firebirds history. I'm thinking of doing a Plymouth Whalers video to look at their history when they were in the Ontario Hockey League. So these are the top 10 scorers during the Flint Firebirds era. So Ty Dellandrea leads the way during his time with the Firebirds, 94 goals, 122 assists, good for 216 points. Gavin Hayes, second with 79 goals, 87 assists, 166 points. Amadeus Lombardi is third overall in franchise history, 63 goals, 98 assists, 161 points. Then you have Colson Petrie, there's a familiar name, 75 goals, 84 assists, good for 159 points. Jacob Durham right there with him, 75 goals, 84 assists, 159 points. So those two are the same. Then we have Ryan Moore. He comes in sixth, 72 goals, 87 assists, 159 points. Then we have Brennan Othman, 78 goals during his time with the Firebirds, along with 76 assists, 154 points. Riley Piercy, the former Barrie Colt, he's on this list at number 8, 57 goals, 92 assists, 149 points. Ethan Keppen, he is ninth, 79 goals, 67 assists, 146 points. And then Zachary Giroux, who was traded to his hometown Sudbury Wolves just this past season, 51 goals, 90 assists, 141 points. Then when you look at goaltending wins, Luke Kavlin leads the way with 62 during his time with the Firebirds. Nathan Day, who's currently with the Firebirds, he's second overall with 44 wins. So by the time Nathan Day's career is over in junior hockey, he could be the leading goaltender in wins in franchise history. In third, we have Anthony Popovich. He has 29 wins to his credit. Garrett Forrest, 26 wins for him. He's fourth overall in franchise history. And then Connor Hicks, he has 18 wins to his credit with the Firebirds, and that puts him in fifth in franchise history. Now, 9 players have already gone on to play in the National Hockey League who have played with the Flint Firebirds. That's pretty impressive in under 10 seasons. But when you look at the playoff history, I'm only going to go back to 2016. I'm not going to include Plymouth. The first season when they had all the firings and rehirings of the coaching staff, they ended up missing the playoffs. So that was a tough run from that season. 2017, the Firebirds would make their OHL playoff debut, but then were knocked out in the first round by the Sioux Greyhounds, and that was in 5 games. They would then go on to miss the playoffs in both 2018 and 2019. No playoffs in 2020 or 21 because of the pandemic. But when hockey returned in 2022, the Flint Firebirds, they went all the way to the Western Conference Final and ended up losing in 7 games to the Windsor Spitfires, 1 win away from appearing in their first OHL championship as the Flint Firebirds. But after that, they took a step back, knocked out in the first round in 2023. That was by Saginaw in 7 games. And then this past season, knocked out in the first round by the London Knights in 4 games. So since 2016, they've only had 1 deep run in the playoffs, but what a run that was going up against the Windsor Spitfires. And of course, Windsor would play Hamilton in that OHL final and lose in 7 games to the Bulldogs. So it would have been fascinating if Flint could have made it to the final. But this is a team, I think, that's still growing. They've done quite a few additions this offseason, the summer of 2024. So I would think they're poised for a pretty good year and maybe a deeper playoff run in 2025. We will have to wait and see on that front. But the Firebirds, they have been through a lot since arriving in Flint. But this team, they're putting a good product on the ice for next season. And maybe they'll challenge for first place in the West Division. Maybe they can get their first division title as early as next season. We'll have to wait and see. That's how I see it from the booth when it comes to the Flint Firebirds. If you're a fan of the Firebirds, let me know in the comments section down below maybe your favorite moment or your thoughts on this team since arriving from Plymouth. Thank you again for all your support. I'll be adding this to the playlist looking at OHL team histories here on the channel. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.